Just an amazing form of music box with the bird chirping. The tone is so beautiful.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
Hey everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I'm here at the St. Petersburg Coliseum, and we are here for the annual antique show. It's a beautiful building in a wonderful part of town, a great venue, so let me show you around.
The approach to the Coliseum is really neat because we're right in the middle of the historic part of St. Petersburg. St. Pete had a huge boom in the 1920s and went from a town of about 6,000 to a city of 60,000 in the space of a decade.
On this side you see the old St. Petersburg High School built in the 1920s. This has been turned into condominiums, and it has had a shuffleboard court since the 1920s. There's been a revival of interest. They actually had the national championships here a year or two ago. And this particular shuffleboard club has stayed large by having an open Friday night where they play alternative and rock music, and younger people come out and they play for free. And because of that, they've gotten a whole bunch of new people involved. And back in the background there, you see the top looming over of the Coliseum, which is where the antique show is. So this is the original Coliseum Ballroom, built in 1926 at the peak of the Florida land boom here in St. Pete. It's a great old building and a wonderful place for a show. I can't wait to show you the inside, so let's go on in. So the first thing I wanted to do is show you this beautiful venue. It's such a great setup for an antique show, or really any sort of a show. This is the interior of the 1926 St. Petersburg Coliseum. Big bands would play on that stage. They'd have tea dances every Sunday. This is back in the Florida boom years of the 1920s, when people discovered Florida as a tourist destination. All these little alcoves were places where you could rent and have your little place off to the side, and then go out into the ballroom if you wanted to. So the VIPs and the people who had prestige got to sit in the alcoves. And one of the alcoves is where I have my things set up for this show. They don't use the stage for the show, but they use all of the floor space. There's generally about 75 to 100 dealers at this show, and there are some really fine antiques here, as well as fun stuff, groovy stuff, cool stuff, retro stuff, vintage stuff. So we'll do one more shot back because I just love showing this with all the beautiful draped lights, and then we'll go downstairs and start. So beautiful things appear right when you walk into this show. This really is a nice show. A lot of the dealers come from as far as New York to do this show. Here's a whole case full of wonderful little objects. This old needle case, it says it's the Columbian egg, is actually from the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Just a wonderful collection. The carved piece here. They have a belt made out of porcelain, and it's all geisha girl. Really beautiful piece, not something I've ever seen before. Very finely painted ceramic. Some really wonderful Art Nouveau pins, sterling jewelry. This is a really unusual piece here, the penguin carrying the basket. That's a Bakelite piece. Look at the bashful Charlotte being bathed here. Probably an indication of the spa era before hospitals, where people went for recuperative purposes. Here we have the blue guilloche. Guilloche is where the enameling has this geometric patterning to the back of it, and it's kind of a double layer. Really lovely things. And then down here, a bunch of Vestas or match cases. These are real ones. They are not reproductions. They're very strict at this show about things being authentic and genuine. You see all the shoe pieces here. A lot of these are little, would have been for sewing implements or holding other items. So these are little things that people can take home with them, which is good because we have a lot of tourists who come in to the show, and also who come to St. Pete in the wintertime. Here's a lot of beautiful Limoges boxes. Again, these are original old pieces. These are not the recent ones that you see from the 80s and 90s, although those are nice too, but these are what they are patterned after. This dealer also has larger boxes, bone paneled with the painted portraiture. Again, these are largely from France in the Victorian era, and they are really lovely pieces. Very hard to find. This dealer is very, very careful about what they buy. This set here is something you don't see very often, especially having so many pieces. The green glass background, these are Tiffany. These are Tiffany pieces made approximately 1900. They have the arts and crafts feel for them. There's also a piece of Tiffany d'Oro in the back. Really, really great set of various dresser pieces. Just lovely to see this kind of work here. Some of these pieces value in the 4 figures. Just wonderful Tiffany glass and related metal. New to this show this year are some dealers we haven't had before. This is a really beautiful Majolica piece. Look at the stand on that. Great deck decoy. A nice primitive child's country chair with the caning. This is going to be early 1800s, possibly even earlier. This is all hand hewn. Some very nice porcelains here. Royal Dalton. Enameled cranberry glass. This is an unusual flow blue vase here. Now next door, new to the show this year, we have a vintage fashion dealer, and they have everything from Marimekko and Betsy Johnson back to things like this 1970s number here. You'll also see they have an entire section here of Lily Ann. Lily Ann is a high-end name from San Francisco. If you see Lily Ann out there, folks, Paris and San Francisco, pick that label up anytime you see it. It's one of the old labels that's very valuable. Here there's an entire rack full of 1940s and 50s, and they've wisely looked for medium and large sizes because people were so much tinier then that the smaller sizes don't fit very many people. Great selection there. Here is a wonderful cloche. This is what they called this style of hat in the 1920s. You would see the flappers wear them. This one has wonderful embroidery on it and a great coral color. Also have some great old shoes for the fashionista who wants to look vintage. These are really cool boots. If they were in a men's size, I'd be tempted by them. They're a little hard to see against the black, but they're neat. 1940s heels. This is a lovely silk dress with the gold threading. And then you've got a very poppy 1960s fabric in this one. Again, a lot of 1940s to 50s here. This dealer really has great stuff. I'm going to show you one other thing, which is, love this. You've seen bowling shirts. Well, here's a woman's Junior Bowling Congress instructor dress. Never have seen a bowling dress in my entire life before. And next to it is a good old fringed, we've seen interest in fringe again lately, and this is an old piece. This is California Ranch Wear El Dorado, and that is going to be from approximately 1960. Now, because this is a high-end antique show, you might think that, well, things are going to be expensive and I couldn't possibly buy anything there, but look at this piece of furniture. It's Victorian mahogany. Look at the incredible detail in the carving. There's metal work around the edge here. It's got the vanity mirror, which I'm sure you'll see my reflection in. There's my legs. But it's a really cute, sweet little piece of furniture. It could be in a bedroom, it could be at the front door. It could be something you throw into, strangely enough, a modernist house in order to give something to break up the boxiness. I see people do that if they have a wall where they can isolate. And it can work really well in decor. This is priced at $125. Very inexpensive for what it is. There's some interesting things in this space. This is a really cute, primitively painted on masonite picture of Bach Tower here in Florida, one of the most famous early Florida attractions. And he built this in 1929. It has an amazing carillon bell, and it's still there. It's at the highest peak in Florida, 300 feet above sea level. This dealer has really wonderful Victorian jewelry, and boy, do they have a lot of it. Such good selection. These are all Victorian era gold-filled bangles. meaning like a gold plating or a rolled gold. These are from the 1860s to approximately 1910 or 15. The Gibson girls were kind of the last group of women who wore these style bangles. But they're just beautiful. You notice some of them are rhinestone encrusted, lots of them have beautiful etching. Some have monograms. You can't really take the monograms off if it's plated. And here's another case. They have two cases of them, and I want to zero in on one in particular as much as I can. See the one in the middle with the lion's head and all the rhinestone and garnet around it? That is just an amazing piece. They have just beautiful, wonderful things. And then the other half of the booth, here's a case of all religious icons. There are a lot of people who collect these. St. Christopher medals, all sorts of things related to missals and little testaments, crucifixes. Really beautiful, iconic items. And since it's Sunday morning here in St. Pete, we thought it was appropriate to show something for the Sabbath. I wanted to show some of these jewelry pieces too. Carved wood jewelry was very popular during the Second World War because we couldn't get rhinestones from Austria anymore. And so carved figures became very popular. And even though the native carvings can be a little bit exaggerated, they were very popular in the time too, because of course with guys off at war, suddenly we're being exposed to cultures and parts of the world that really were not well known to a lot of Americans until then. You'll also see the combination of wood and lucite coming in at the end of the war, like the swan here. Here's some more carved pieces here. It's a very collectible subgenre of costume jewelry now. These pieces here are Art Nouveau in style. You've got some wonderful buckles and clips. Those were especially prized. The Gibson girls like to wear belts, and Victorian ladies as well, that had rhinestones and enameling and other things. Something that's very popular here in Florida, I sold a piece yesterday, is anything made with butterfly wings. This is a really great charm bracelet with a whole lot of butterfly wing. And then we also see, just like there's a lot of painted porcelain from the 1910s, there also were a lot of painted portrait pins from the same era. Sorry about the glare from that light, but at least you get to see all these beautiful faces. These chain bracelets were very popular in the Victorian era, and we are seeing a real revival in interest in Victorian jewelry at this point. Boxes are very popular now. Everybody wants things they can put things in. People like to have their collections housed rather than just sort of strewn all over places now. This oak one here with the shields and the brass mounts is a particularly nice one from the mid to late Victorian period. This dealer also has a lot of silver vetru. We see increasing interest as silver prices have gone up with more uncertainty in the world. We've seen more interest in little silver objects. These cobalt-lined, glass-lined pieces are a particular favorite. There are a lot of people who collect sterling specifically if it has that. And then we have these bookends. They look like Max Headroom, but they're actually from the 1930s. They're early industrial style art. Souvenir spoons are still very popular. You can collect them from all over the world. Any site that sold souvenirs probably sold sterling souvenir spoons at some point. Beaded bags and reticules are particularly desirable in the market these days. I sold a very nice one yesterday, and I saw that lady pick up several from dealers around the show. This one is quite unusual with the heraldic bird in the middle. These were all made in the late Victorian to early 1900s. This dealer also specializes in bookends and metal art, particularly pieces from about 1900 to 1920. Painted pieces are generally harder to find. The monks with the books are from about 1910. There is a company called Armor Bronze, I believe out of Connecticut, that is well known and popular, but a lot of other companies made them in cast iron, brass, bronze, and marble up until about the 1930s. I wanted to show some more boxes and also a fun game. This is a racing game made in about 1910 called Ascot. This is actually from England. You would turn the crank and that would cause the horses to race. I'm not sure if we can open it up and see, but yes, here's where all the pieces are. And it is just a really wonderful set. I've never seen this game before. I'm sure it was great fun and probably not inexpensive back in 1910 to buy, so I'm sure they didn't make a ton of them. Next to them we have Capodimonte boxes. These would have been done in Italy. And Meissen also did copy Capodimonte with similar work in the 1860s when this was very, very popular originally. Capodimonte had a revival in the 1970s, and so we see a lot of 1970s era Capodimonte pieces. So these pieces actually, even though they're antique, are something that are familiar to a lot of people who saw the more recent versions, all of which are collectible. I actually sold a large Meissen box, I believe it was about 28 inches wide, for $3,500 at this show last year, which for me is a pretty huge sale. They also have some lovely brass portrait boxes, very pretty things. And then here we have a wonderful piece. This Arts and Crafts circa 1910 is a enamel on copper painting. It is artist signed. That's something that would sell in the Northwest in a heartbeat. We never see things like that anymore. This dealer is a friend of mine who has a lot of fun advertising items. Advertising from the mid-20th century, everything from Coca-Cola bottle caps to the cool cigarette thermometer, which is a hard piece to find. I think he found some old stock that was a warehouse find, and his prices are really very good. There's a lot of fun things that are not expensive, fun to collect. He's got a lot of vest pocket tins, the old motor oil. Motor oil cans are actually pretty collectible now. Red Top Snuff. This would have been a store display from about 1940. And I see prices on these for as low as $2 a piece and up from there. He also has a collection of Roseville pieces. Roseville is seeming to make a comeback in the marketplace. It always was well made. The molds were kept very fresh so that you don't see pieces that are not well defined. They really were very careful about their quality, and it shows, and that's part of what collectors like about them. These date between the late 20s and late 40s primarily. And then drugstore tins, room for rent signs, aspirin tins, all this fun little stuff people like to collect. Here we've got Coca-Cola trays, various eras from the 1950s and 60s. This dealer has some really interesting pieces that we've never seen before, and actually, if anyone knows more than we do, we'd like to know. On the left is a piece referred to as a loon, and it is carved of seems to be a basaltic granitic stone, and it's Chinese. There is a hole in it, and we're not entirely sure what its function was. We think it probably was hung and suspended in this manner, but it's really unusual, and this is something, if anyone out there knows more than we do, we would love to know more about it. Also, this French piece, this is a wonderful carved stone sculpture and with metalwork. The cap on the back is 14 karat gold. 18 karat gold. It's a wonderful piece. If someone has an attribution for this or knows more about its origins, it looks like something that would have been made perhaps in the 1930s from the style, but it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business, you will still find something you've never seen before. So if someone else knows more about that, we are looking for information. This piece with the dragonfly etch is a fantastic piece of Tiffany from approximately 1900. This is not a piece that we see often in this larger size and with that detail. And then there's some beautiful Lalique pieces here as well. We have the leopard or ocelot The recumbent nude is a very famous Lalique piece. So beautiful pieces at this show. There are some dealers with really wonderful items here. This case is full of Alaskan marine carvings, and these are not elephant ivory. They are legal to sell. And there's some really interesting pieces. The little sewing implements, a lot of figural items. These are very popular where I'm originally from out west, but they actually sell well in this part of the country. And this is a Danish piece, and we'll show the side of it here in a moment. It's just beautiful. The parrots are really lovely, all hand painted in the glaze, and I believe that this piece probably dates to the 1930s would be my estimate, and Danish ceramics in the mid-20th century are very desirable. This dealer also has some wonderful original Icart prints from the 1920s. Icart was a very famous French illustrator, and you can see there's a sold tag on this one along with the Christie's estimate. These are very desirable, very collectible, and here's another one. This one is Don Juan. It's wonderful to see originals of these. There were a lot of reprints done in the 1980s and 90s when Icart came to a new level of popularity. Finding the originals is where there's real value. These pieces belong to a friend of mine from Tampa who has been a dealer for a long time, and she's got wonderful early toll paintings here.
They're 1800s.
Yeah, these are early 1800s, don't you think? Yeah, these are beautiful, and to see the birds and the painting in good shape is just really difficult. Do you think they're English?
No, I think they're American.
Really? And why is that?
Do you know Hazel Giles? She does the cashier show. She's a promoter.
I don't know
and she
her.
does Atlanta.
Mm-mm.
Well, Hazel's been a dealer for. She thought they were American, but they are from the 1800s.
They are beautiful, and
she was going to price
thank you
for me.
And then, because I love this sort of stuff, I just have to show you. Here is an alligator purse with the full front end and the alligator wrapped around
From Cuba.
it. It's Cuban. It would be 1950s before the revolution there, and that's part of what makes them desirable is their origin. Here's a table set with pink depression glass to pick up the colors in this beautiful hand-painted Venetian velvet tablecloth. And you see a nice gold sconce of flowers on top as well. Isn't that pretty with the cherubs and all of this? This would be something that would have been done likely in the middle 20th century, but it's just gorgeous, all the colors and cherubs and lovers. This dealer also has a lot of nice Asian porcelain, imari from Japan, such as in the upper left here, various blue and white. We're going to see some Canton pieces and some Famille Rose as we go this direction. Here's the Famille Rose. These have the China mark from the 1891 to 1918 era. You see other marks after China becomes nationalist, but these are earlier. Famille Rose is the pattern name because of all of the rose color and the rose paint, hand painting. You'll also see figurals in the pieces as well. Some really unusual pieces. The casserole dish is nice. This handled serving dish with the under tray is unusual. This very large piece is a very nice Imari charger from the Meiji era, which is the last Japanese dynasty, 1868 to 1911. This one's decorated and signed by Hichozan Shimpo, and it's priced at $395 for a really large, nice presentation piece with a designer name. That's a pretty good deal. And here's Canton. We have a Nanking tureen on the right here. First half of the 19th century. The lozenge-shaped vegetable tureen is circa 1830. Canton was exported all over the world at that time and was very popular. Our dealer next to us, hats are a specialty for her. Hats and cats. And You see really fun bonnets. Look at the wonderful purple with the flowers. If you're going to the Kentucky Derby, you can be set up for certain. And then she also has really fun things of local interest to us, like this Barnum and Bailey circus printing set. Now that the Barnum and Bailey Circus is no more, there's a lot of people starting to collect this. It was a big part of Florida culture because this is where they spent their winters from the 1920s until last year when it finally ended. Japanese luster, 1930s pieces. You've got a lot of the little French-style figures, although most of these pieces were made in Japan. You see salts and peppers. You see dogs and cats. These are really fun, and people enjoy collecting these a lot. The bird you see here is an Automaton. This is a Swiss piece. These have been made since the Victorian era. This particular piece is probably 1960s. Just an amazing form of music box with the bird chirping. His head turns back and forth. The tone is so beautiful. Very valuable, very collectible, and a really fun thing to see at a show. I wanted to show some of the things that I brought to this particular show. You'll see some things that you've seen in some of my haul videos because that's where they came from. I've got a fair number of art pieces right now. That's a nice Venetian painting from about 1970. The chrome shelf here is a modernist piece, a store display from Indiana that I found, which I'm going to use until it sells because it's just really great for display. We always, of course, bring flamingos from California. I've got a piece of blue coral with the cast iron bottle opener in front of it, and to the right is a Beswick bird, a parrot, made in England. The print here is Turner. These were made in Chicago. You usually see flamingos. The cockatoos, cockatiels, and other pieces are less common. Here we have another modernist piece. This is by an artist named Castillo. This is a Florida piece. The picture here is an 1890s piece with the stork on it. I brought quite a bit of glass to this show because there are art glass collectors here. The fish in front is Murano. So are the fruit pieces and the elephant. Behind is a Hager panther lamp with the unusual brown and greenish gold glaze. Three Blanco pieces. The hard to find juniper color bamboo vase to the left, and the purple vase in the middle, and then the purple genie bottle to the right with the acid etch from about 1960. Something I just got yesterday is this Lobster Trap, which is from up in Maine. It ended up being owned by a professor at New College in Sarasota who taught fish-related sciences, and so he had it as part of his display. Also have the motion clock with the ship's wheel. The hibiscus chalkware is an unusual piece to find. And then I also have the flamingo caddy and the United clock. It's funny, there's a lot of high-end real antiques at this show. I bring more 50s kitsch, and I do very well because it's something different.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.